All right, so let's keep it real. Everyone talks about capitalism in the US, but most people can't actually explain simply how it really works. But today, a working class, underemployed, blue collar male is going to break down in simple, plain English so you can finally get it. No fluff, no jargon. So let's get into it. And not only am I going to break down what it is, but also, is it the best system for us in this present century? In these present times, are the masses of us benefiting from the system of capitalism? If you ever wondered why some people get rich, why prices change overnight, as we're experiencing right now, or why the government steps in sometimes and does the wrong thing or the right thing. Maybe right now they're doing the wrong thing. This video is for you. By the end, you'll understand exactly how capitalism works here in the United Snakes of America. Capitalism is an economic system. In its simplest terms, people, not the government, own businesses, property, and resources. Goods and services are produced to make a profit. Prices, wages, and production are mostly decided by the free market, meaning supply and demand. Supply and demand explains why we have this epidemic drug problem here in the US, because if there wasn't a demand for these drugs as a coping mechanism to exist in this society, there wouldn't be any supply. But since there's demand, heavy demand, there's supply getting in. Think of it like this. You start a clothing brand, you set your prices, and if people love your design, you make money, right? If nobody buys, you take the loss. That's capitalism. Now, the US has a mixed capitalist society, our economy, so they say. Meaning most things are free market, but the government still makes some rules. I mean, they make a lot of rules. Private ownership, you can own land, start a business, invest, and keep your profits. Competition, companies like Amazon, Walmart, Target compete for your money. Competition pushes innovation, better products, and sometimes lower prices. Supply and demand. If a product's rare but everyone wants it, prices go up, right? They say in the, I don't want to get the druggo market, certain things that are rare, the prices are going up, right? Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to escape. So how do they escape? They escape by getting high. If there's too much supply and nobody wants it, the prices will drop, which will never happen, right? There's a profit motive. Businesses exist to make money. Profits get reinvested, spent, or given to shareholders. Government's role, right? Even though we're capitalists, the government steps in when we need, right? sets laws like minimum wage and safety rules, breaks up monopolies, supposedly. You know, you see how effective they are in that. So one company doesn't control everything, but we find that there are companies that control everything. They collect taxes, fund schools, roads, and defense. Now, capitalism has its upsides and its downsides. I guess you could say freedom of choice is one of its pros. Innovation and progress, opportunity to build wealth, tons of product variety. Its cons, and I want to get into this because I asked ChatGPT some specific questions, and the cons of capitalism, as we are witnesses, is income inequality, worker exploitation, economic booms and busts, and short-term profit over long-term sustainability. So I'm starting to think that this capitalism thing is not really working, man. And would it be better for us to have a system, an alternative? And I'm reading this book on history, and it's talking about right now the Soviet Union, which is now Russia, and the U.S., and how after World War II, those were the two superpowers: the United States and Soviet Union, now known as Russia. In the U.S., it talks about the Cold War, because basically at this time, it was not only the U.S. was the first to drop the nuclear bomb, the atom bomb, the atomic bomb. They dropped it on Japan, destroyed Hiroshima, and affected hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people. But U.S. felt like it was the only one that had this technology when it really didn't, because there were basically, the U.S. didn't have any domestic, like very few domestic scientists and individuals working on this technology. It was a lot of foreign individuals, scientists, and you know, these very engineers and stuff that were basically working on developing this. And even when they figured it out, they were afraid, because they knew that what they had in their hand was the ability to basically destroy something, destroy millions of people, destroy a civilization in a matter of minutes, if not seconds. So they were afraid, and they even expressed this fear to the ones that were in charge at the time, like, hey, I don't think we should use this for this purpose. But knowing how them folks operate, they did what they wanted to do, and we had the Hiroshima and the effects of it over 80 years ago. I think it's been 80 years. But basically, now Soviet Union had access to this same weapon. And so they knew, oh, damn, the Soviet has it, we have it, then if we both go to war, that would be the end of all of civilization, right? So it was a Cold War. Basically, nothing happened. But also, too, what's interesting is how the U.S. at this time was so afraid of the spread of communism in other countries. They were worried about it here domestically, but they were afraid how the Soviet Union, which was operating at that time, and maybe still, off of the idea of communism and wanting to spread communism under Stalin, the U.S. was afraid of that happening. And so I said, why would they be afraid of that? Like, why? I didn't understand. And I've read about communism in different governments that, instituted communism. I've read about it, but I never really understood what was the fear of it, because it was a fear. You think about what happened with let's say in I can't think about it right now, but with the Contras and that whole situation that developed and how the U.S. was using at the time, I think it was Panama. They were using the Contras and funding them to fight against a communist overturn. So they were basically allowing drugs and to be, because at one time, I guess the president at that time said, "Oh, we can't fund this. It's like this is, this is turning very bloody, very deadly. So we can't directly support this no more. But we'll allow, which we'll just basically turn a blind eye if you decided to use money from narco operations to fund it." So that's basically what they did in Oliver North, and there was a book about it. It was turned into a movie. It was I can't think of the movie right now, but you guys can pretty much go ahead and do some research on this. But basically, what the movie and what the book talked about is how the U.S. government basically allowed the drugs to be flooded into the urban communities, the black communities, in order to fund this war against communism. So I said, why? I asked ChatGPT. I said, but why would America? Okay, so the first question is, why was America so afraid of the spread of communism? And basically, it said to me it was afraid of the spread of communism because it didn't want for communism would totally affect the ruling elite and the capitalistic society. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of the spread of communism affecting the ruling elite in the society. The ones that control in the capitalistic society are the owners, and they wanted to keep their power. They want to keep their power. They don't want to lose their power. They want to keep their power, which is why communism threatens their power. And so I then asked ChatGPT, okay, that's understood. Those that are empowered in the capitalistic society, which are the few, are afraid of losing that power, and communism is a direct threat to that power, because in a communist society, everything is basically decided by the government, and there are no ruling elites except for the government. Like, everything is basically supposed to be distributed equally. You're supposed to have everything you need, not more than what you need, but just enough. So there would be no oligarchies. There would be no Elon Musk and all these individuals, right? So I said, well, that seems kind of fair, because here in the United States, we already have a form of socialism with government programs, the welfare system, and all that. But you still have poor Americans that get online and talk about how they're so much against communist China and it's turning into a communist country. And I said, well, why would they, if they're not benefiting from capitalism like the people that control it, why would Americans who are not a part of the ruling class or elite class, Americans who are one medical emergency away from poverty, be against socialism or communism? And the response that ChatGPT gave me was, that's the $1,000,000 question. Why do so many poor or working class Americans reject socialism or communism, systems that could actually benefit them? Here's the raw truth. 1. Decades of propaganda worked. From the 1940s onward, the U.S. government, media, schools, and Hollywood drilled into people's heads that socialism equals tranny, communism equals evil, capitalism equals freedom, God, and the American dream. This was never about truth. It was about controlling public opinion to protect corporate and elite interests. If you repeat a lie enough, people believe it, even when they're suffering under it. Number 2, a false hope in the system. Even broke Americans think, one day I'll be rich. I just need to hustle harder. They brought the myth that they're temporarily embarrassed millionaires, not exploited workers. So they defend capitalism like it's religion because they believe they'll win eventually. This is psychological warfare. They're not rich, but they identify with the rich. They vote and think like the 1%, even while living paycheck to paycheck. Fear of losing freedom. They've been taught that socialism, communism equals government control, no freedom. They fear government rationing, no choice in healthcare, no private property, being punished for speech. Even under capitalism, they already have, and we're witnessing it. We're actually experiencing this right now. What ChatGPT is talking about is exactly what we're going through. No real economic choice, sky-high medical bills, debt slavery in the form of car notes, mortgages, credit card bills, no job security, being a wage slave, 1 or 2 weeks of freedom per year, if you're lucky, called a vacation. They fear chains. They have never won more than the cage they live in. Number 4, cultural individualism. America runs on rugged individualism. You take care of you, don't expect handouts. Socialism focuses on community, shared responsibility, collective well-being. To many Americans, that sounds weak or lazy, even though it's the foundation of every function in society. Number 5, racism and division. Elites have used race, immigration, and cultural wars to keep the working classes divided. Welfare queens, lazy immigrants, undeserving poor. These myths make working class white Americans fear that socialism will give their tax dollars to someone else instead of seeing the real enemy, corporate greed, Wall Street, and billionaire tax cheats. Media control and distraction. Number 6, corporate media owned by billionaires keeps people distracted with culture wars, celebrity gossip, left versus right bickering. What they don't show is how capitalism exploits you, how socialist policies work worldwide, or how the ultra-rich rob us blind. Bottom line, most Americans aren't against socialism or communism because they understand it. They're against it because they've been trained to fear it, brainwashed to protect a system that abuses them, taught to hate their own salvation. It's not that the working class love capitalism, it's that they never been told there's another way, and there is. Now, I then asked, okay, well, we're often told you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. If you work hard, you grind, you hustle, no matter where you start out in life, you can have the opportunity to make it to the top, to have that American dream, to be a self-made millionaire or billionaire. Not starting from wealth, not starting from privilege. Because when you look at the world's richest man right now, which is Elon Musk, right? He had a wealthy father. His father was a part of the apartheid system and the apartheid class in South Africa. When you look at the current president, Donald Trump, he had a wealthy father, a real estate developer in Fred Trump. When you look at even Bill Gates came from an upper class family that gave him access, and you can read about it in The Tipping Point, gave him access to, at that time, the only computer in town, which enabled him to create and become what he became with Microsoft. So even though we don't have much evidence aside from in particular in the black community, a person that hit the genetic lottery, right, and became a famous football star, basketball star, or a person that also, in my opinion, is a chance of luck, or whether you're chosen, became a famous musician, rapper, whatever. We don't have many examples outside of that, because we are the group that are on the bottom in all areas. Economically, socially, politically, we are at the bottom. We don't have many of these examples in our own community, but still we believe in this, and a lot of Americans don't have these examples. We still believe in this myth that if we grind hard, if we work hard, if we do this, if we do that, learn this skill, learn that, take up this hustle, invest in this Bitcoin and all this stuff, like stuff that social media influencers sell to us so that they can sell a course to get rich. We still believe it. But I asked ChatGPT, what are the odds of someone starting from poverty or from the bottom, especially a black American, but other groups as well, becoming a millionaire or winning the lottery? Because that's another thing we think about. We can win the lottery. Now, this is the answer that ChatGPT gave me. The odds of becoming a millionaire from poverty, short answer, extremely low, but not impossible. It said extremely low, but not impossible. It depends on race, education, zip code, access to opportunity. Bill Gates. Here's what the data shows. Only 4% of Americans become millionaires. Only 4%. I think there's over 300, 400 million of us Americans. You do the math. 4% of that. Of those, most were already middle or upper class. I just said that. Less than 1% of people born in poverty, less than 1%, climb to the 1% of wealth. If you are a black American born into poverty, it gets worse, right? According to the Pew and Brookings, 70% of black children born in the bottom stay there. 70%. 70%. I mean, just think about that. That's 20% over half. 70% of black children born in poverty stay there. only 2 to 3% reach the top income brackets. Racial wealth gap. White families have 6 to 8 times more wealth than black families, even when education is equal. Translation: you can do everything right, work hard, get a degree, stay out of trouble, and still be boxed out of a rigged system. Why? Housing discrimination, underfunded schools, hiring bias, police and court bias, no generational wealth or network. Poverty in America isn't just economic, it's structural. Powerball. Now, this is a chance of winning the lottery. Powerball or Mega Millions jackpot. Odds: 1 in 292 million. That's the odds. You are more likely, according to ChatGPT, to be struck by lightning twice, or be killed by a vending machine, or become an astronaut. The lottery is statistically a tax on the desperate, especially in poor communities. People spend more money per capita on lottery tickets, hoping for an economic escape that the system won't give them. So which is more likely? Becoming a millionaire from poverty, especially as a Black American, single-digit percentage at best. Winning the lottery, virtually zero. Neither is likely, but one requires playing a rigged system and the other is pure fantasy. So, do the majority of us really benefit in 2025 from capitalism when the system is rigged? Or will we benefit from more of a socialist system, right? A socialist system in which everybody, I guess they say a universal income, everybody gets a basic but decent income that enables them to meet all their basic necessities, have a nice home, a basic income that will basically support a family of 5, right? And that family of 5 was able to have all its basic necessities met, have a nice home, and then have some money to do other things, right? Will we benefit from a system more like that? And they say, well, that type of system, who's going to collect the trash? Who's going to want to do the dirty jobs, the dirty work that needs to be done if we don't have some type of initiative? Well, that's where we have to get past this ego thing where I don't want to do it, and we have to collectively think, okay, we need to do what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone is to find a way to dispose of our trash. And some people are going to have to, instead of thinking about themselves, instead of thinking about their own ego, be willing to do that, right? That is the type of society that we need. This capitalistic society is not working. It's not functioning because we see that only the 1% control all the wealth, control everything, and all of us are the working class slave. We go to jobs that we don't like. We hate our jobs. We do all these things to cope. We have all this crime. A lot of it is fueled by economic desperation. We have all these things that's showing that the system is not working. It's not working. It's breaking down. It's not helping us. It's not making society better as a whole. It's actually making society worse, especially here in the United States of America with rugged capitalism. So this system is clearly not helping us. So if we had a system, and maybe we need to try it out. Maybe they should see and try it out to see if this system is better. Give it a shot. A universal income that supports a family of 5 with the ability to have money left over to do things, extra things. And I guarantee what you will discover in that type of system is that people will have more free time to actually do the things that they want to do that can be a net benefit to society as a whole. I guarantee you that, because you will have people that let's say are healers, that like to heal, people that like to build, people that like to do these things, but they because of their economic situation, they're not able to do it. Because of the economic things that the things they deal with, they're not able to do it. But in that system of socialism, based off the universal income, you may have the ability to do that. So with that being said, this is your brother tapping back in once again. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. J Soliloquy. Peace.